Too many leaders lead for validation, not impact, for what they can get out of it more than what they can give to it. Hi, my name is Chris, and I'm obsessed with how leaders grow and develop, and I too have insecure moments. We all do. Glad you're here with me now on the SightShift podcast so you can learn how to lead for impact, not validation. Welcome everybody to the SightShift podcast. So glad you're here. And we're currently doing a series interviewing CEOs and business owners and leaders. And Matt McClellan, so glad to have you here today, introduce you to our listeners. And just to give them some context, tell us a little bit about at least your current role. We know there's some transition.
Sure.
And the organization and the scope of the organization, just so people realize the kind of pressures you face.
Sure, absolutely, Chris, and thank you for having me on. As you know, this is my first podcast, so we will definitely see how it goes. But yes, I am second generation, and it's a commercial construction company, Miles-McClellan Construction Company. Started in 1978. My first job with the company was helping build conference room walls when I was in sixth grade at 50 cents an hour, and I joined the company full time in 1991. So I've been here over 30 years now, and I've been leading the company since 2012. And it's really then we were commercial construction, and we did industrial work and healthcare work, a lot of renovation specific, competing in the Columbus markets. The biggest market we're in is Columbus. We do have a small office in Charlotte, North Carolina. But we weren't really different from our competitors. And we were successful. 2012, coming out of the Great Recession for construction, we're a little bit behind the rest of the industry. And we started to snowball some successful years, year after year. But in 2018, 2019, we realized that organic growth was easy because we had come from so far down following that recession. But we really needed to have a vision, and we really needed to have a solid strategy in place. So we really have really turned the company around from a general construction company in the market to one that is very targeted in both the targets we focus on in terms of the renovation, the healthcare, the industrial, but also the way we deliver through self-performing divisions. And we started with a vision, 2X, 3X, 400, 2030. And that 400 refers to the number of teammates. We started at around 120 just in the year 2020. And we're 290 plus right now. So we're well ahead of schedule in the growing of our skilled labor crews.
Awesome. Lots of people getting jobs and getting paychecks.
Yes. And it's the belief out there is that skilled labor is hard to find, and it's an accurate belief, but we are constantly searching, constantly hiring, and focusing on training more than ever before.
Wow, that's fantastic. I mean, it's really powerful because when you think about what it takes to break through those levels to be at plus 9 figures with that kind of team count, it just brings its own pressures, not to mention the dynamic pressures of second generation leadership. Where do you feel like just the overall business conversation maybe misses, and there may not be anything that comes to mind, I'm just curious, misses the unique pressures of that second generation leadership?
Making sure I understand the question right, you're just asking what are the pressures on second generation?
Yeah, what do you feel like some of those unique points are?
Yeah, so first of all, I think pretty much everyone knows the success transferring from first to second generation is like 47%, and then second to third is 12.5%. So first of all, I memorized those numbers right away and made it an absolute goal to hit that 12%. And it was actually part of my written life plan. was to pass the company stronger to the third generation than it had been passed to me. So the interesting thing about my journey has been that, as it turns out, and my brother and I are business partners, Tim and I, and but our dad passed the company. He's very traditional first generation engineer, hardworking, didn't focus on growing the business. He focused on projects. And as it turned out, I'm not naturally bent to be first generation, but I viewed it as a gift that I am more naturally inclined for second generation. So taking the hard work that our dad put in place to start the company and focusing on the company more than ever before and growing that company in a healthy way. And there are unique challenges. Obviously, partnerships are challenges, but any kind of family partnership is even more challenging.
Yeah.
Both at the office and at holidays. It definitely comes with its challenges. There was added pressure that wasn't necessary, but the way our dad retired and turned over to the company and had us pay him out over the next 10 years to buy the company from him. But that made the largest part of his retirement count on our success. And that pressure really weighed on me. The growing up my own leadership team actually wasn't the pressure. It was exciting to me because I saw the way the first generation grew their leadership team, and it had a lot of weaknesses. They were very much wanted to be in control, so they kept a very flat organization. And it allowed me to take some of the strong performers in that flat organization and give them more leadership opportunities. And they were craving it. And they really grew with it very quickly. So some of the early growth I referred to in 12, 13, 14, 15, it was just those individuals taking off, taking the blinders off and letting them go.
Yeah. Wow. So, I mean, I've seen you do that, get excited about people growing, and what a powerful call out for people that are holding it too close. I'm sure you see that a lot with different relationships and connections you have.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Both inside and out of the company. We work on it when it's inside. When it's outside, we coach around it.
Yeah.
So
if you were trying to encourage business owners right now that are just holding everything too close, how did you find some momentum, relief, or success letting go more, and how might that encourage them?
Yeah, what an interesting question. I haven't thought about how to coach them because, and I have some very good friends in my peer group, my construction peer group. They've grown their construction company. It's as big as ours, maybe even more profitable than ours, but it's really around one person and his ability, his relationships, his ego, his tenacity, so many positive qualities. But one of them, he has not figured out how to truly delegate and develop leaders behind him. And for me, I was at a conference and was watching the conference. I wasn't present. I was watching it through Zoom, and the speaker asked the question, how many people in the room today are concerned about being here, that they're away from their desk and they're afraid something's going to go wrong when they're away from their desk? And it was shocking how many people raised their hands. And I can remember a time when I would have, at that moment, I wasn't that person, but I can remember very much when there was. And I just realized how important it is to have the leaders behind you. It reaffirmed the way I was working, putting the leadership behind me, completely reaffirmed. that I was on the right path for me anyway.
Yeah, right on.
As far as advice goes, I like I said, you just have to find the room to give people freedom and allow them to make mistakes,
Yeah.
because we all make mistakes, and um, the truly strong leaders aren't afraid to make mistakes. They make them, and then they become better for it.
Right on.
At least the way I've worked and the way it's worked for me.
Yeah, we only learn through mistakes, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's the whole idea. And I've had so many dumb
Oh
moments
yeah.
as a leader. Um, I think
Oh
that
yeah.
takes me to this, and we'll get into it later, but even us
Uh-huh.
working together, working with your organization, doing our full leadership operating system with you, I wasn't aware until you and I had connected on this earlier this year that you had delegated the final decision on that. Because in
I
my
did.
mind, yeah, normally it would be you making that final decision. So I was surprised to learn that, and just for the listeners to know, Matt is living out what he is saying here. And yeah, not that there needs to be just any comments on that, because I thought that was a great illustration of you living this out.
No, but actually, it was two of the youngest exec team members. Not young, well, actually, youngest age too,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
but the least tenured Miles-McClellan teammates. And I can't remember exactly why I decided that, but I decided at the time I needed to show some faith in their decision, and I did trust them.
Yeah.
Um, and no, I was confident in their decision, and I think I surprised some of the more tenured members of my team. Um, but I can only say that it worked.
Oh,
So
that means a ton. I love
yeah,
why would you say it worked? What would make you define that?
it's it. One of the focuses, the mission of our company, right in the mission statement, we succeed by building leaders, and I truly look at um, our construction company as this huge grouping of small businesses. Every job is a small business.
Hmm.
Every site, you have someone on site in charge of manpower, building the building, making decisions every minute of the day for the owner there. No leader here can come help get those decisions made
Hmm.
on a moment's notice. Now there's backup and support and documentation, yes, but the better that field leader is, the better every single project goes. And so we have really focused on building leaders. That's why we look for a very specific leadership building program. And and I think this program offered exactly what we were looking for at the right time.
Hmm.
And it allows us, we've been building on it and putting in our academy, um, which was one of the legacies that I wanted to leave this company before I retired. And it's happening quicker than I thought.
Oh, I love that. When we can do
So,
tomorrow's work today, that's always a win.
yeah. Yep.
So
Absolutely.
for any listeners, what Matt's referring to is in our larger overall program we do with
Yep.
organizations, we help them put in place a leadership academy so that not only is there coaching and support throughout the organization, but there's these learning pathways, and we have the means and the ability now to at scale give everyone that opportunity that wants to grow. So yeah, that fires me up to here, and we'll probably come back to that some more later.
Absolutely. We felt it was a huge differentiator for SightShift
Mm,
for us.
mm, mm.
But yeah,
Super meaningful. So when you think about like today's world and what it means to be at the top as a leader, it's not about the power, it's about growing the leaders. I think you've articulated that beautifully. Um, what, how would you speak to those listening about some of the challenges that are just the loneliness of leadership and and where that can lead your heart and mind to go to? What would come to mind there?
that that's a great question because if you let it, if you let that loneliness um, build, and I found through personal experience, I'm talking about my personal experience, letting it build to the point where it can overwhelm you. Um, it can cause a lot of emotional dysregulation. It can cause a lot of panic um, and panic attacks. But what I have found is some of the strategies from youth, a bit about being able to do things myself, tackle everything myself, be that lone wolf and not count on anyone. Um, I learned ultimately that I need to count on other people and have. So while it does feel lonely, while it builds the pressure of decisions that you don't know if you're making the right decision or not, and it could be a very big decision, it could involve someone's livelihood. Um, and to have peer groups, and I have maintained two for the past 20 years, but really leaned on them in the past 5 to 6 years, has been very important to me.
Mm.
And they both, in terms of, they can call me on my BS. They can push me when I'm avoiding those hard decisions, and they can also um, help me make those hard decisions, but also help me process after they either go well or don't go well.
Yeah.
So peer groups are a huge piece of my learning and my toolbox. And then the other piece is my wife,
Mm.
um, which early I didn't share with her. I felt I needed to protect her from my stress. She couldn't handle that stress. She didn't want that stress. And I learned that I was cheating her and me.
Mm.
Um, and so she is now a new, sometimes I need advice and sometimes I just want her to listen. But she is definitely a part of my framework to combat that loneliness.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was reminded of that a few nights ago. Um, Having three in college at Ohio State, we're not always around the dinner table. And at least two of the three kids were there. And, we had had something very successful work in a powerful way. And they were being encouraging around that. It meant a lot. And I just said, hey, just so you know, for one thing to work, there's a lot of things that haven't worked. There's a lot of
Yeah.
failures to get that learning. And it was a great moment and a funny moment because my wife is connected to me in the journey and she's like, yeah, your dad fails all the time. And it was a good laugh for us to have because we are mistaking our way into that better approach, and powerful that
Yes.
you've got her and the peer groups. I know when we started working together and with your team, you were starting to really do a lot of work on yourself and come to a place of understanding yourself already. In a way that I think would be helpful for those listening. So tell us a little bit about kind of the moment you were in personally. You've already referenced it a little bit, like with the panic attacks.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think some leaders are like, what am I doing wrong that I feel anxiety?
Yes. Absolutely. And I like sharing that part of the story because it amazed me as it was happening, and it continues to amaze me even today as I continue that journey. But I had um, started panic attacks started in early 2023, and a lot of it was over pressure of my business relationship. Um, uh, well, I mean, almost all of it was over that pressure and the pressure of the retirement, with my dad and paying that debt, and the relationship with my brother, and the success of the offices, and so I was starting down a path of self discovery and some of my traumas and early traumas through talk therapy, um, and it was good. It was learning self discovery and pushing through some of those traumas and learning about them, first learning about them and then processing them and pushing through. And at the same time, I'd started doing some independent reading, a book called Buddha's Brain, and more about Buddhism and finding the authentic self and emotional regulation. And one of the most interesting things is for me is that we dove into SightShift right at right in that time frame, Chris. It was right toward mid 23, I believe. And one of the early tools in SightShift is you help leaders relax through what I call the trauma wall, but relax through some of their fears and don't react to that fear, but relax through it. Um, and the tool that I use to relax, as it turns out, I had already done that.
Mhm.
You would want us to pick a place, and I picked the water. I picked the ocean specifically, and that crystal blue, clear blue water in the Bahamas and Caribbean. But when I started having panic attacks, I would go to the Barnes and Noble at night and buy boating magazines
Hmm.
and look at pictures of boats and water. I didn't even know what I was doing,
Hmm.
but I was using that to help relax through that dysregulation, to calm myself down, and to engage the next day. Um, and so it's been an incredibly impactful tool for me.
That's
So
awesome.
I don't know if I answered your question or not. I took it down a little different path.
No, it's great. I mean, that's the idea. You were intuitively figuring out and discovering I can visualize, viscerally imagine something, and it is helping train my brain, train these emotional
Yes.
states, unlearn the dysregulation, and learn new habits for my nervous system. And and
Yep.
yeah, that's it. And so for those listening, we call it identity space, but you're going into a place and you're learning that my identity isn't on the line with everything. Whether I win or
Yes.
lose, I'm not defined by that. Um, and it was powerful to watch you really lead the way and say, hey, so many times I'll go first. Let me tell you how this is applying for me. How have you seen it continue to, or initially and continue to apply even with your executive team? You know, where have you seen shifts or improvements in them as a way of honoring the work they've done?
Yes, absolutely. I think, and again, I can see it in myself,
Mm.
obviously first, but then I can see it in them. And I'm hoping to start seeing it down the line further. And I think we will as we get our leadership academy kicked off here. Um, but where I really see it is the overall calming of the room and the ability to have harder conversations,
Mm.
but everyone stay present, not get defensive.
Mm.
And we have one member of our team that even knows he tends to get defensive. Um, and so we had a very challenging situation just yesterday. Personnel. We're going to lose one of our future leaders um, because it's an unusual circumstance where he needs to take care of different business.
Sure.
But it hurts because we were really counting on future leadership of a division, and my team lead was very upset yesterday. And I asked him, we had a meeting coming up, and I asked him, do you want to process this in that meeting? And
Mhm.
it's our level 10 meeting. And so all the leadership teams in there. And he gave it some thought and he says, I'm not sure.
Mm.
Let me think about it. You know how I can get very defensive.
Mhm.
And I thought that was a great first step that he was there. And then in the meeting, he brought it up, said, I'd like to process it. I would like to talk about this a little bit further. And just managed that conversation so well, kept present, and really got good feedback from everyone. I don't think we solved a problem, but we had good feedback and good thoughts, and I think he felt better.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome. That's awesome. It's amazing to me, and I don't think people realize it, how much that defensiveness, whether we're hiding from the issue or trying to power up, improve in it, keeps the
yeah,
conversation from happening that needs to happen. So while everyone slept on it last night, their brain is working to get them to their own intuition and wisdom, but that isn't happening when we're trying to convince ourselves of why we're
Yes.
right and everybody else is wrong.
Right. Um, keeping it in my court, and for our industry, I mean, unfortunately, it's very male driven, and there's often too much testosterone in the room, and there's a lot of proving that happens. And sometimes it's just who old school. It used to be who could yell the loudest, and that hasn't been our model for about a decade. We're really working, so we're not giving up on some of our old school teammates. Some that have been here 40 and 50 years. We're just helping them relearn
Yeah.
a different way. But even me, I spent a lot of time with one executive team member. I've had the same executive team for 15 years.
Mm.
And this person had worked for us since early 2000.
Mm.
So, um, but he took up so much of my headspace
Mm.
at 4 a.m.
Mm.
Um, and we were never, between the two of us, we were never able to relax through a conversation and really stay present.
Mm.
And both of us speak, and then both of us hear the other person. And it was early 2024 after we had both gone through the program, sometime very late in the program, that we actually finally had that sit down. We actually were able to laugh a little bit about some of our previous heated conversations. And we just sat there until we both agreed that it just wasn't working and we needed a change.
Wow.
And so we parted ways. Still talk to him today.
Mm. Mm. My man, it is
Yeah.
so powerful to understand and appreciate the work it takes to advance a mission and do relationships like that. And one of the things that you have seen is this investment into relationships, yields such a massive return to the overall vision. I think what's powerful to me is you've done the work, you're seeing the fruit of that with your team, and then you also on your own said, "Hey, I want to take some people I'm on a board with through this training you went through with us." And I remembered something you messaged me, and you said, "I've actually gotten it deeper now, taking people through it." And that's just so the heart of where we close. It's like teach what you know. Um,
Yeah.
what was for you like a compelling motivation to say, "Hey, I want to take, I want to take these people on this board through this program also."
Absolutely. So it is a board that I was new to. Um, and as part of my board role, I was asked to be a mentor to one of the young men. And young, the entire leadership team for this company is between 35 and 42 ish. So very young team. And they showed youth in some of the decisions that they were making, and that's okay. They are young. And but as part of this mentorship, we started having conversations similar to what we were learning in SightShift. And I was giving him some work and some modeling. And he actually suggested that right as we were finished the program, and the last piece is teach what you know. And I think it's a great chapter because you're spot on when you say you learn more when you teach, and I really did. So he suggested that all three of the exec team start to meet with me,
Mm.
and we met. It ended up being about every 3 weeks, just because their work schedules and life schedules, and I like the every other week schedule. I think it would have been a little bit better. Um, we weren't able to finish, and this is an interesting part of the story. We got to about 2/3 of the way through, and it just December, January hit, and schedules just kept falling apart. Then I ended up being gone for 3, 4 weeks, and so in that time, the other two board members, so there's three outside board members, the other two had heard that I was working with these three individuals, and they suggested, well, they take their leadership programs. And so between February, March through now, so February, March, April, they were using those other two leadership programs, one from each company. And I think, frankly, they were overwhelmed. So I said, guys, let's hold off on ours. Let's hold off on SightShift work. And then I talked to them about 2 weeks ago. And I said, look, you've had a lot of leadership training. You guys just want to pause? You want to stop? Where do we want to go with this program? And they said, no, we were getting much more out of yours, your work, and we want to continue that. And all three of it, well, we've all talked, we all agreed, we're on board, and we'd like to start late May, early June. So we already have the next 2 sessions on the books. And I think I'll go back through some of chapters 6, 7, the finding your safe place, I'm missing the right word, right?
Yeah, I'm tracking identity space. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, identity space. Yeah. Finding your identity space and going from there, and then building mission and working for it. And I'm really excited to get started again.
Wow, that's awesome. Why do you think we hear that a lot, and I kind of know some of the stats on it. Why do you think that is that they said, hey, we were getting more out of this, what you were doing with us?
I think it just I don't want to disparage any other programs, and certainly
Yeah,
not any of
yeah.
the programs that they were in, but
What is the
it's not
difference?
gimmicky.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not tools and techniques. There are tools involved, but it's not short term tools and techniques. React this way when this happens. It's more. For me, it changed the way I look at all relationships and can engage in all relationships.
Mm.
And so, yes, it's leadership development, but um, it's leadership development because it's helping you stay present and regulated and having deeper conversations, and therefore you are a stronger leader.
Mm.
And I think they really um, felt connected amongst our small group, even at a deeper level, with us being vulnerable. They were all incredibly vulnerable with me
Mm.
as we went through some of our fear discussions and some of those stories. Um, and also the SightShift program builds very methodically. It makes sense how it builds each component on the next. And I think they were disappointed when it stopped, and I know they're excited to get it started again.
Wow. Super, super cool. Thank you for sharing that. And I think
Mhm.
for those listening to know, like you're doing all this, investing in leaders, up leveling yourself and your leadership team, and it's not like your horizon is just um, empty and free and you're just coasting. You're in the midst of a big transition. Tell us a little bit about what you're leading the whole organization through currently.
Sure. Yeah, my role as CEO kind of doubled this year. We're continuing to grow the business and add strategic business units. However, and we do some of that through internal growth and acquisition. But in the midst of all that, we are focusing on transitioning to the third generation. And again, I've mentioned earlier that that's part of my life plan, and to do it more successfully and in a better position um, than when I purchased the company. But we're taking it through an ESOP model, and we've now have our team players on board. We have our attorneys, our investment bankers. We're working on our trustee and our TPA. So we have our team built. We've got a great team, and we have a target date of December this year. And I'm very excited. And part of the reason I'm excited, Chris, I'll be honest, is because the deeper I dove into successful ESOPs, what makes an ESOP successful versus an unsuccessful transition is the bench strength of the leadership team.
Mm.
And I'm not just saying that because we're here today. It's
Mm.
something really
Mm.
And it's something I'm afraid about. Going back to an old question, is what happens when a company's built around an individual?
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid for my friend. I don't know how he transitions out, and he's
Mm,
10 years older than I am.
mm,
So I'm worried about him. Um, but in this model, um, I became really confident in my decision. First of all, I felt it. I felt ESOP, employee stock ownership program. I felt it fit our family nature, our family feel, and a culture. But then when I started reading that what makes it successful is having that generational leadership in place. Um, and I am really excited. We've got our, matter of fact, one part of the process, even getting ready, was we have announcements coming out in 2026 with the new ownership structure, but we're going to have an increased, beefed up leadership structure.
mm.
And then we have our 2029 org chart build out, what it will look like in 2034, around the time that I transition out of the business,
Mm.
what that's going to look like.
So easy,
So
nothing hard, basically.
I always joke. I said, we have those mapped out. I know one thing, it won't look exactly like that, but it'll be close.
Mike Tyson's quote, right?
Yep.
Everybody had a plan till they get punched in the mouth.
That's one of my favorite quotes, actually. Isn't
That's
that funny? That's so true, though. Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth or punched in the face.
yeah, yeah.
And we get punched around here occasionally.
It's
So,
the truth of leadership, the truth of leadership.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I have some fun rapid fire questions I want to ask you.
Okay. All right.
Before we do those, maybe just one last question around, as leaders might be listening to this, um, what would be your best way of expressing like this is why you should take this journey with SightShift. Get your leaders coached, get your academy built, get your people trained. What does that why go back to for you?
The why for me really gets it's our mission again, building leaders, and my belief um, that having strong leaders at every level of the company makes my job easier ultimately. It
Mm,
just, I don't think I said that before, but it really does. I get, oh, I didn't mention, since we put in the new model, since we put in the strategy, and since we started measuring, our NPS scores have really been best of class in construction, certainly for the last 3 to 4 years. But I think the biggest part of that, the last 23, 24, and into 25, our constant comments come back about the strength of the relationship that gets built with the superintendent. And that is the on site leader. That's the
mhm,
contact that the owner every day has contact with the superintendent. Um, and that superintendent can be a problem solver, um, and a bold decision maker, or they could be afraid to be wrong, afraid to make a mistake, call the office, have the project manager help, have someone at the office help. And that job's just going to go slower and it's not going to be run as effectively. And the client isn't going to be as happy.
mm,
So we want our leaders to stay focused, stay present, and make the best decision they can, even if it's wrong.
mm. That's awesome. It makes me think about, I remember we were working with, we were talking a little bit about this before we hit record. Working with a client, they were large, 30 billion. And
Yeah.
I just asked him, I said, why are you investing in your people now? This was during 2020. So many other people were scaling back. They were cutting fat,
Uh
right?
huh.
But they end up without awareness also cutting some muscle. And and he said, look, this is what I've learned, and I'm going to invest in people when it's hardest, because then when the larger winds of the economy change, we're ready to capitalize on that moment.
Yeah.
Um, and they did it. I mean, they added 20 billion in like 4 or 5 years, and you know, all numbers are just relative. It's just
Yeah.
outcomes, but are coming out of this process, this mindset that at the end of the day, it's people. And
Yeah.
and way to emulate that. I've been able to see that up close and personal. I don't always get to coach as much anymore, but it was an honor to be with your team in the sessions and see you do that. And
Oh,
so
thank you.
just yeah, to be here today and have you give of your time like this is really generous. Okay, so a few fun
Yep.
rapid fire questions. Number one,
Okay.
not that these are easy. What do you like most about being you?
Um, I like being me. I think of life as a journey,
Mm,
and that I'm on this journey. I'll get it to make up some mistakes, and um, I've always been someone interested in personal learning, and I guess I've learned more this last year than I did. Honestly, I've done that I did the 5 years before, and I'm excited about the next 10 years.
yeah.
That and I'd be really remiss in saying that I'm really proud of our family
Mm,
and what they bring to me. And I'm selfish that way. I guess they bring me so much, and that's the strength of my wife.
mm,
Definitely.
yeah. That's beautiful to hear. Okay, second. What's a favorite way? And we think about this in terms of like memes. Memes are ideas that, live on. We think about them in terms of a visual meme now, but memes
Mhm.
are ideas that just live on for a long time and capture people. Do you have any kind of favorite meme or metaphor you're using right now to describe leadership, the world, how to make sense of things? Not that there has to be, just curious.
I wish I did have a good favorite funny meme, but um, I talk about being a pirate, not just in the sense of drinking rum, although I
Yeah.
really like good rum. But I keep a map of one thing. I'm not naturally as curious. I find myself going to solving problems too quickly versus really getting curious maybe even before I know what the real problem is, or maybe there's not a problem at all. Maybe,
Mm.
uh, but I have a picture of a pirate map on my phone that I can tap and look at often during meetings that can bring me back to remembering I'm not here to solve a problem. I'm here to listen, be curious, and ask questions.
Wow. That's
So,
super fun.
yeah,
I'm so glad I asked that.
yeah,
To picture you in a meeting, lots of stuff on the line, and you're looking
yeah,
at a pirate map. That is cool.
yeah.
That's just freaking cool.
X does mark the spot here. So,
Yeah, that's great.
yeah.
Okay, what is your favorite moments of community? Like when do you feel like life is the richest relationally? So for me, it's a long dinner with friends, a 3 or 4 hour dinner. We close the restaurant down, something like that. What comes to mind is kind of like moments that life feels most cherished by you.
Uh, for me, for me personally, it is absolutely probably a Saturday morning at the lake house when all my kids are there.
Mm,
So it's a full house. I've got two grandkids.
yeah.
I've got four kids, three significant others within those four kids. Um, and it's loud. And breakfasts are big, and it's messy, and it goes against everything that makes me comfortable being neat and tidy and quiet and but it's those moments when I can sit back and just let it be messy and noisy and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So that's personal, and at work I really love um, opening meetings, getting to know our team a little better, just sitting there, asking them how their weekend went, ask them how soccer went, you know, who Craig's son's driving a car finally, um, just learning about what they're dealing with personally too.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right, Matt, what an honor to be here with you today. Any last encouragement you would want to give leaders listening?
No, I don't. I'll say one funny thing. Maybe it's irrelevant, but I don't like offering advice. Very often when I talk to college kids, I don't. One thing I do say is don't burn a bridge in Columbus, Ohio. It's way too small of a community. it, it'll it'll come back every time. But no, I appreciate being here, Chris. I appreciate the invitation, and it gave me an opportunity to reflect on the last couple of years working with SightShift and you, and really this year, one of our big goals is getting that leadership academy in place. And I can't wait to take one of our young groups through that program myself.
I can't wait to hear about it, and anything we can do to support you in that, we got your back.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Awesome, Matt. Thank you for being here today, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your afternoon.
You too.
Peace,
Hope everything
brother.
goes well.
Yes,
All right. See you,
thank
Chris.
you.
Thanks for joining me on this episode. There's always more for you at SightShift, SIGHT, shift.com, to be the leader you were meant to be.